Hi there, I'm Virginia of the YouTube channel Finickety Reader, and I'll be trying to speak up this time.
This Saturday I read two books that I really should have liked equally, but I didn't. I was reading Teach Yourself to Think by Edward de Bono, which I gave 1 star, and Hardwiring Happiness, which I gave 4 stars to. At a quick glance, these books are quite similar. They're both self-help books to a certain degree, and they both purport to change the way you use your mind. The difference is in the execution. Both books have to work to find 200 plus pages of content, but they approach this problem very differently. Rick Hanson gives you all the basic information you want up front. He spends a while telling you about experience-dependent neuroplasticity, which I found very interesting. But if you really just want to cut to the how-to chapters, it tells you where to skip to. He then fills the last 50 or so pages giving very specific activities to deal with 21 common problems. Basically, with Hardwiring Happiness, you get the feeling his goal is for the reader to gain the mental resilience that he had to gain for himself, and tries to promote in his patients. Teaching Yourself to Think, on the other hand, feels like an upsell. For those of you who haven't heard that phrase before, an upsell is when you buy a product, or in my case borrow from the library, and they use it as a platform to try and sell you more products like other books or even a course. I have a copy of one of his other books, Teaching Thinking, on my bookshelf that I got in a charity shop, and now I don't know if I'm going to bother with it. I didn't know when I picked it up he was the 6 hats man, and now I can't imagine it'll have much to tell me, let alone something I'll want to know. To stretch his book to 250 pages, de Bono repeats himself, talks down to the reader, and then adds pointless full-page illustrations of symbols that he then has to explain. To misquote Roman Mars, if you have to explain your symbolism has failed. This isn't even the most annoying thing he does. What really rankles me about this book is the ego of Edward de Bono. In the introduction, he criticizes the form of thinking adopted after the Dark Ages with the Renaissance, which I'm fine with, but then he says, I believe our civilization would have been at least 300 or even 400 years further advanced if we had not been trapped by such an unconstructive thinking system. Who knows? Maybe we could have skipped the entire Victorian era if top hats came in colours other than black. On a more serious note, I think the biggest difference between Edward de Bono and Rick Hanson is my perception of their legitimacy. If you look into their academic backgrounds, you'll see that de Bono has a PhD in medicine and qualifications in psychology and physiology, whereas Hanson worked while earning a PhD in clinical psychology. De Bono's qualifications sound more impressive, but he has one glaring deficiency that makes all the difference: results. I'm not the first to point out that de Bono's resistance to criticism and confrontation is the opposite of the modern scientific method. Having great ideas is all well and good, and creativity is a muscle we have to learn to exercise more efficiently. But a great system is only as good as its results, and de Bono just doesn't seem to care. Either he works from the assumption that he's already right, or he discards criticism as a result of the old entrenched system, and something he's moved past. Anyway, Rick Hanson gets my respect because he seems to have an interest in research and, as far as I can see, cares about results. He wants you to get happy and stay happy, and will support any healthy route that gets you there. Generally a good trait in a psychologist. The result of all this? When I'm not skint, I'm going to be buying my own copy of Hardwiring Happiness, so I can work through it and get the most out of some good ideas. You might remember in my last podcast, I mentioned another book I was planning on reading called White People by Xiao Hung Pei. I've gotten about 20% through it, and I'm liking what I've read. I'll be giving you a review later this week, along with a quick word about my reading goals for this year. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Talk to you later.